Okay. Good afternoon, councillors, members of the public. Welcome along to this meeting, which I declare open. Now, ladies and gentlemen, good to see you all here. If there is a need to evacuate this room quickly, I'm going to go out this door. But please just orderly go out through that side door you all came in and straight out into the garden. Welcome to Member for Bunbury, Don Punch, MLA. Welcome to you, Don. Nice to see you here. Under announcements, I want to reconfirm the city's congratulations to the Bunbury Regional Entertainment Centre Board, its staff and the many, many volunteers for their being awarded the State Presenter of the Year. It's a terrific outcome and very proud that Breck have won that or been awarded that award. Okay, we have Councillor Cook is on approved leave until the 31st of May. We're all here, the rest. Declarations of interest. Councillor Kelly has declared a declaration relating to 10.21, which is the rate exemption community housing, as he is the chairman of the board of Accord West. So he'll be leaving the chamber when we deal with that matter. Are there any further declarations of interest, councillors? Thank you. Confirmation of the previous council meeting. Can someone move? Councillor Hayward, Councillor McGuell, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. The minutes of the Policy Review and Development Committee. Councillor McGuell moves. Seconder. Councillor Hayward, all in favour? Those against? Two. Councillor Kelly and Councillor McCleary are against. Are there any petitions, councillors? Presentations. We have a number of requests for approval tonight. John Robinson seeks approval to speak to item 10.4.1. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. Gary Fitzgerald also seeks approval to speak to 10.4.1. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. Karen Buswell wishes to speak to item 10.4.3. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. Mike Ferguson also wishes to speak to 10.4.3. Those who approve. It's approved. Sarah Wall also wishes to speak to 10.4.3. Those who approve. Thank you. And Michelle Larson wishes to speak to 10.4.3. Those who approve. That's all approved. So for all those people, I'll invite you up before the council deals with the actual matter, and you'll have 5 minutes each, and I'll explain. Yeah, Michelle Larson speaking. Okay, thanks, Maureen. I'm going off your screen tonight. So, councillors, let's have a look at the agenda tonight. Coming out for discussion is 10.1.1, 10.1.6, 10.2.1, 10.2.2, 10.2.5, 10.4.1, 10.4.3, 10.5.1. Are there any other items, Councillor Steck?
10.1.5, please, sir.
10.2.6, Mr. Mayor.
10.5.2, please.
Councillor Steele, what was your number?
1052.
Any further? Someone move the balance, please. Councillor Hayward, Councillor
Second,
Stick,
sir.
all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. We go to 1011. Someone move the recommendation, please. Councillor McGuell, Councillor Hayward. Yeah, Councillor McGuell, Councillor Hayward, do you wish to speak? Do you wish to speak, Councillor Hayward?
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. This process of review has come about to have a look at how we manage cats and our cat law in Bunbury, the use of traps and other things. And I think the staff need to be congratulated on coming up with a fairly good approach that I think balances the community's expectation, and in terms of being able to manage a process which is fair and reasonable and encourages our community to help resolve these situations. The cat traps are used quite a lot within the community. I think you've seen some of the numbers, a couple of hundred cats trapped a year in Bunbury. But our staff do a fantastic job of rehoming most that aren't allocated or find their way back to their homes. I think that the parameters that are being put around the use of these traps in the future will actually help the community better understand what their responsibilities are as cat owners, but also be a little bit more, a little bit more, soft is not the right word, but a little bit more easier for the community, I guess, and for cat owners, should their cat be doing the wrong thing, to be given a bit of an opportunity to get that sorted out by being aware cat traps are being located in their areas and making them a bit more vigilant and understanding of what their responsibilities are. So I think it's quite a big improvement on what we had before. We didn't really have a policy around how these things would be managed, and we do have one now, so I'd encourage you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, I'm only against one section of this, and I wanted to move that the City of Bunbury discontinue the use of cat traps. The RSPCA doesn't like them because they think they're inhumane, and I did a bit of research. 12 in metro and outer regional councils in Perth don't use cat traps.
So you wish to move that the council actually stops issuing cat traps?
Yes, sir. And I'd like to put number 3. We've got 1, 2, and I'd like 3. The City of Bunbury discontinue the use of cat traps.
Councillor Smith, can I ask that you actually submit that to the Policy Review Committee for them to take on board? Question from Councillor McCleary.
I just wanted to know that if we didn't use cat traps, what's the alternative?
Yeah, well, Councillor Smith's happy to refer that matter to the Policy Review Committee. That can be discussed then, if you're happy with that. Is there a speaker against?
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, just another question, if you would bear
Another
in mind.
question, yeah.
Yes, please. If we're going to discuss it, if you're going to discuss it at the policy, shouldn't it come back, because this, if we approve this, then we're using cat traps?
That's correct. You're right, if we approve it tonight.
I'd like to put a recommendation that we defer it for 2 weeks so the policy committee can look at.
The Policy Committee won't be meeting within the next 2 weeks, so what you might do is defer it to the next meeting of the policy. Is there a second for that?
I'll
Councillor
second that,
Stick. All those in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried. Councillor McGuell, Councillor Hayward and myself voted against, so that's been deferred until after the next Policy Advisory Committee meeting. That's correct, yeah. CEO has just advised me to remind everybody that the cat traps will still be issued until there's a change of position by the City Council, if there is a change. 1015, can someone move the recommendation? Councillor McGuell, seconder. Councillor Hayward, Councillor McGuell. Councillor Hayward. Speaker against, Councillor Stick.
Thank you, sir. I just wish to make an amendment, and that is that every chairperson who is a chair of any committee be able to be a spokesperson for that committee, sir.
That's ultra vires the Local Government Act, Councillor Stick, so I'm not accepting that.
I didn't expect you would.
Is there a speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. Those against? 2, 4, 5. That's 2. That's carried. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. Yep. Those against were Councillors Steck, McCleary, Steele, Warnock and Smith. Ten 1-6. Move the recommendation. Councillor McGuell, seconder. Just want a seconder, Councillor. Yeah, I'll just wait for I get a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor McGuell. Councillor Kelly. Okay, speaker against. Councillor Smith, you want to move?
Yes, sir. I'd like to move that the policy on the Bunbury Museum and Local Studies collection be referred back to the Policy Committee for further consideration and advice.
And do you have reasons for that?
Yes, sir. I've been through the policies quite extensively, and I sent a series, I think, of 11 questions to the CEO yesterday along those lines. I've received a reply late this afternoon, but I haven't had a chance to really look at those, but I still think that this needs more work in this area.
Is there a seconder to refer this matter back to the Policy Committee? Councillor Steck.
Yes, sir.
I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried. Councillors Brown, McGuell, Morris and I voted against. 10-1. Thanks, Councillor Kelly. Someone move that. Councillor McGuell, seconder.
So I will only second this only in the fact that we've got no choice but to do this, but I will say that this is just wrong how council has to give these rates grants to these kinds of not-for-profit organisations all the time.
Thank you, Councillor Steck. Councillor McGuell, did you wish to speak?
To agree with Councillor Steck next to me, we don't have a say in this, so unfortunately we have to move it. There's nothing we can do, so that's why I'll be voting for it again as well.
Speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks. Councillors, the next item requires an absolute majority. Can I have someone move the recommendation, please? Councillor Warnock, is there a seconder? Councillor McGuell. Councillor Warnock, do you wish to speak? Councillor McGuell. Speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Ten to 5. We have a nomination from Councillor Smith to attend the convention this year. Does any other councillor wish to attend?
Yes, sir.
Councillor Steck. Anyone else? We don't have to have two, but Councillor Steck wishes to go. That's fine.
If we want to go, we don't have to have a motion pass. Is that correct?
No.
No, thank you.
So can someone move that Councillors Smith and Steck be our nominees? Councillor Warnock, Councillor McCleary, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move to item 10.26, and just a reminder, councillors, there can be no discussion about staff in the public arena. So can I have someone move the recommendation? Councillor Hayward.
Quick question, Mr Mayor. Is it possible that we put this item off to the end of the meeting so we can go behind closed doors?
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
I second that.
We'll do it anyway. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 10.4.1. Just remind me to come back to that one, mate. Mr. Robinson, come forward. Welcome. There's a clock in front of me which will guide your 5 minutes duration. Yep. Off you go.
Okay. Mr Mayor and councillors, My name is John Robinson. I'm the community representative for College Grove. First off, we're very disappointed to be here again in the same situation that occurred in 2015. We're not opposed to the block being developed. It's the high density number of units that will not fit in with the existing low density surrounds that we are opposed to. Our peaceful semi-rural suburb is secluded from all Bunbury areas by bushland on all four sides. The streets are characterised by large family homes on blocks averaging 500 metres square, with some larger ranch blocks over 2,000 metres square. The bushland seclusion creates a quiet, close-knit community. To recap, the 2015 proposal of 30 units was described as high density by the media, your council and residents. We were previously advised that the council will enforce a condition of sale that the land be rezoned as R15 with an opportunity to increase to a maximum of R20. We were further advised that the maximum number of homes that would ever be built in the future was around 16. The majority of residents were happy that this was a very good outcome. A proposal for anything above R20 should not be should not have been accepted by the council as it goes against the conditions of the sale. High density will not fit in with the existing low density surrounds. It will change the identity of our sleepy, tranquil suburb and may be a variance with the WA Planning Commission's policy of liberal neighbourhoods. Traffic, the problem with the front intersection were unforeseen at the time when the subdivision was being established. At present, the results of the traffic survey undertaken by Main Roads on the Bustle Highway fronting College Grove are not expected to be finalised for a number of weeks, and thus the intersection drama is currently unresolved. The Summerfield Drive and Trinity Rise T-junction is a blind hill for traffic and is troublesome to pull out of today. Today we'd like to request that the Council recommends a reduction down to 20 units before its Council approved. Reasons for requesting the reduction include honouring the 2015 agreement that the land remains R15, R20 zoning. The suburb was promoted as the best country in the city when being developed. The high density of this proposal means it will not fit in with the lower density surrounds. Development should be in keeping with the rest of the suburb, and the front intersection in Bustle Highway remains unresolved. In closing, we have made our community wishes abundantly clear. 30 dwellings does not meet our community expectations. A maximum of 20 would be far more acceptable to us. This is still 4 more dwellings than what we would be assured would ever be built, and we feel this will be a fair and reasonable compromise. No amount of safety measures or compensations posed will sway our acceptance of 30 units. We chose to live here to get away from built-up areas where the density is higher. We will have to live with the high density units every day, so we hope our wishes are prioritised over profit. I've got also an email here. We've got a minute to go. I won't read the whole thing. It's on your TIA, and the very end of it, it's from Gary Fitzgerald to Barbara McCauley, and a carbon copy to Thor Farnsworth. The very end of the email says, as previously stated, the proponent sees any suggestion for further investigation as completely unnecessary cost and requirement, which could have the result of stopping the development and sterilising the site for future development. We would like a traffic assessment done. No bullshit. Thanks.
Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors. If I can just bring up a brief PowerPoint presentation just to assist with some of the information. As I said, thank you. My name's Gary Fitzgerald, for the record. I represent the consortium that's proposed the structure plan this evening. Councillors, we've been working on this for over 2 years. It was a response to an invite, as you know, from the city to look at opportunities for redevelopment of the land. You're obviously familiar with the site, with the aerial photos that are there. As I said, the background is that it's a joint venture, as you know, but just to quickly cover it while we're talking, between Department of Lands and the city, the invitation was open and we put an expression of interest in to develop the land. From the very first meeting that we had with the acting mayor at the time, which was Councillor Kelly, we've attempted to consult along the way to keep people informed, including the community, which includes mayoral, council briefings, as we've briefed council, community consultations on a number of occasions which have been independently facilitated, social media forums to continue the feedback so that we could get feedback through the process, numerous one-on-one conversations and meetings with individuals within the community, and countless hours of discussions with council staff in an attempt to achieve a development that was compliant with the regulatory requirements and the planning framework with which we work within. That framework gives us certainty and it gives the community certainty, council, but it gave us the ability to work within it. And I would add that the proposal that's currently in front of you complies with state, regional, local and your local planning scheme requirements. So the town planning scheme was, as we know, TPS 7. I'll quickly go through this because it's stuff we all know, but just to confirm the framework in which we're working. It's currently zoned urban development throughout that whole area, including the site in the middle of the screen. And it's currently now under your recently developed, adopted TPS 8 zoned urban development. They're the objectives of the urban development zone. Importantly, council, point 2, to provide for a range of residential densities to encourage a variety of residential accommodation. So we believe, again, as I outlined before, that we're compliant with that density. That's a brief outline of the yield and the areas concerned. And quickly going through it as time's running out, that's the structure plan with the R20, the R40, the layout, which shows the 23% instead of 10% POS that's provided. That's your R40, beg your pardon, 2 blocks. The red's your R20, beg your pardon. So that's a layout in regards to what it looks like overall. Key elements that we had to deal with were a number of them as we worked through it. Obviously, flora and fauna surveys, very important. Contaminated sites, which was resolved. Consultation with the community to make sure that we knew or could inform as far as we could to get a viable and appropriate development for what's been proposed. As we said, 23% of vegetation being retained. It was critical to us to maintain that because it was an entry statement into the area, a very attractive component that led to the amenity of the whole area and also to the development within itself. Bushfire, we're fully compliant with DFE's bushfire requirements with a bushfire plan in place. That's through the state, obviously, council, but that bushfire plan has been accepted and will be adopted as part of the subdivision. A couple of the key elements which I know the community's concerns, and we appreciate the community's concerns, is obviously to deal with traffic. What I'd point out to you, council, is there has been significant traffic analysis of this development. It has been to main roads. Main roads traffic engineers have determined that there is no need for a traffic impact assessment. Now, that's not anything other than advice that your council reports to you, that the consultation was with main roads. Our position was just simply that we didn't believe that it required it. A couple of the reasons that we think it didn't require it: the existing subdividable area. The original subdivision area was far more intensified than what this is. So therefore the road design was clearly catered for a far more intensive development within the area. There was the inclusion, of course, of the extension of Winthrop Avenue, which again significantly reduced the impact on the single exit. Again, emphasising the fact that there, as main roads are confirmed, that there's no requirement for a TIA. The context in regards to the density, it's obviously a very complex area with facilities very close. And the nature of development that we're proposing in regards to density is justified by virtue of the fact that you have state policies that support it. Your R coding is consistent with your residential design codes, general objectives, as well as elements of livable neighbourhoods and general principles. It provides a full range of housing types and densities that meets the needs for a range of people. It provides local variations in neighbourhood character. And it ensures, as far as possible, a high level of amenity within the area.
Thanks, Mr Fitzgerald. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, councillors.
Someone prepared to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Hayward, I believe you have an alternative.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Yes, I do have an alternative that perhaps, is that the one on the screen at the moment? I can't quite see.
No.
No. If we could just have a quick look at that alternative. So the alternative is to effectively, in layman's terms, change the plan to remove R40 to keep the entire lot consistent with R20 and the associated information that goes with that, and also to request the CEO to write to Main Roads to ask them to review the intersection, something that's probably long overdue. I understand that work's probably being done anyway, but I think that we need to be following that up. That's
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to read it all, but
I'll just ask for a seconder. Is there a seconder to that?
I'll second it pro forma.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Hayward.
thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. This is a pretty difficult issue in some ways, and we've had a lot of community feedback around this block of land, and if I travel back to 2015, which has been spoken about a bit tonight already, this council did make a decision at that point that it would not accept a higher density zoning on that property, albeit that that was a different proposal, and that was a proposal mostly around social housing, which this one is not. They are different proposals, and it is our responsibility as councillors to make an assessment on every application that comes before us and run it through the process, which is what we've done and what we are doing. However, having said that, given that the amount of public feedback about this proposal and about the concern around the R40 zonings, I think it is responsible for us to listen to the community in that regard, and that we should change it to R20. That may make the project unviable. I certainly hope it doesn't. And I would encourage our city staff to have some discussions with the developer about if there's anything that we can do to assist making that a project that can work. I also do point out, and I am aware, that the proponent will have the right to take this to SAT and challenge our decision, and you know, they may well be successful in that. That's a risk that we take, but we have to make a call. I think our community's made it pretty clear to us that they're not happy with R40, and I think the right decision for us to make is to make it R20, which I believe the community will accept. I am a bit concerned about some of the misunderstanding in terms of information that's in the community about what that might mean. Certainly the numbers I've seen would mean that even at R20 there could be significantly more than 16 blocks, but ultimately that's a configuration issue that will get resolved and sorted out. But I think that the community is unhappy with R40, and on that basis I recommend to you that you support this alternative motion and that we put R20 through. Thank you.
Question, Councillor McCleary.
I've just looked on page 56, and it is confusing, as Councillor Hayward said, as to what R30 means, but we've got an explanation. I just want it clarified, please. It says here, estimated vehicle numbers at R20 is 38 lots, which is 342 VPDs. That is be what you're wanting, but if it was an estimated vehicle numbers at R20 and R40, it would be 30 lots, it's less, which is 270. So my question is, although it's looks a very reasonable, and I can see where you're coming from, Councillor Hayward, I think it would be in a worse position. Thank you. So may I ask the question?
What is your question?
The question is, am I reading that correctly? Have I transcribed that incorrectly? Am I not understanding what that little table there means correctly, please? On page 56.
Yeah, Mr. CEO. Mr. Barber.
Through Mr. Mayor, probably is a bit confusing in the context of the recommendation. So the table refers to the whole land area if it was R20 and only giving up 10% POS, how many lots could be created at that density. The recommendation that Councillor Hayward has put up is leaving the structure plan map as it's proposed, but just changing the coding. So the recommendation would see that the still 23% POS is given up, which has a smaller land area. So the 30 lots currently, by removing the R40 and changing it to R20, it would probably reduce the yield by around 8 lots. That would be subject to design and averages, but it would be around the 22 lots, I would imagine, rather than the 38.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Mr. Mayor, I did have a question through you and the CEO too, and it's to Mr. Barber. With a structure plan, it's quite apparent
that when you change one factor, one thing in the structure plan, you change a lot of things. And I'd just like a view from Mr. Barber about just the simple changing to eliminating R40 and going to R20.
Okay. Mr. CEO. Mr. Barber.
Through Mr. Mayor. In terms of whether it's technically feasible, the lot depths in R20 and R40 are largely the same, so you would effectively be increasing the width of the lots to make them bigger, and the depth stays the same. So could it work at R20 with the current road configuration? I believe it could.
Would it require a recommencement of the structure plan with this proposal?
No, it wouldn't.
No. Did you wish to speak as a seconder, Councillor Kelly? Is there a question from you, Councillor Morris?
If I could ask also to Mr. Barber in relation to, if the executive recommendation, the original recommendation has not been passed, this recommendation that Councillor Hayward has put up has been passed, what's the next step? Does the developer have the right to go to SAT, or does it go directly to the Planning Commission, and what happens if it goes directly to the Planning Commission?
CEO, Mr. Barber.
Through Mr. Mayor, there will be two elements to that. So this is a recommendation to the West Australian Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will review the proposal that was submitted, review the council agenda item, review submissions, and review the council recommendation, and then make its decision. The applicant then has the ability to appeal any decision of the West Australian Planning Commission at SAT. So they have the opportunity both to represent themselves at the WAPC and also to go to SAT if they weren't happy with the outcome of the WAPC.
Councillor Kelly, any further questions? Councillor Smith.
Just a question. If that process did happen, does anyone have any idea what the time frames are?
Mr. CEO. No. Mr. Barber.
Through Mr. Mayor, the timeframe for a decision by the WAPC, I think the statutory timeframe is around 4 months. If it then went to an appeal, it could be another 4 to 6 months after that.
Councillor Kelly, finally.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I worked out, Mr. Mayor, that it's 4 years, 4 months and 4 days since we heard this in January 2015, and not everybody in the chamber was there at the time. It's a couple of elections ago indeed. So having been there from the start, and I was thinking about this as I was driving back from Perth today, there are some times when you need to get with your community and listen to what they say, and in 4 years when you get these changes along the way, some people may not have heard the original story, but certainly I did, and it was very clear, and I thank Councillor Hayward for going back into the record to January 2015. It was very, very clear from the community of College Grove what they wanted at the time. They're not against development, they just want something to fit into their particular suburb. And we've heard it many times over the years. R20, they're happy with. R15, R20, with a good layout. Now, I'm going to talk about amenity and livable neighbourhoods because it's very important that if we end up in SAT, we've got to have a case. And the case that I believe that we've got, reasons going forward to say, support this particular motion as put up by Councillor Hayward, is firstly on amenity. Amenity is a planning concept that is accepted. It's accepted by the West Australian Planning Commission, it's accepted by SAT, it's accepted by everybody else. Now, in this case, the executive recommendation that was put up, the density just did not suit the amenity of College Grove. It didn't suit the layout, it didn't suit the nuance, it didn't suit the tone, it didn't suit the distinction of College Grove, and it didn't suit the existing character of College Grove. If you evoke the castle, it just didn't fit the vibe. College Grove was designed for a certain lifestyle. Mr. Robinson noted that. That's why people were brought in there. And the proposed density that we had previously wasn't suited to that amenity, and hence Councillor Hayward's put up this alternative. So amenity, the previous one didn't fit, this one does. Livable neighbourhoods. Well, the proposed development does not fit with the concept of livable neighbourhoods, and I'm going to say this confidently, because livable neighbourhoods guide structure planning, as we've got here, and subdivision, and at density, you need to have shops, you need to have walkability, you need to have a community hub, you need to have places to go that cater for denser living. Livable neighbourhoods are achieved by site-responsive urban design, and they're based on safe, sustainable neighbourhoods, attractive neighbourhoods that are interconnected, and you can go somewhere. You can usually walk to the shops, as they put it in the old days. So based on livable neighbourhoods, by cramming in a whole bunch of people on top of each other into a place that was designed alternatively, it just doesn't work. So we've got a case to go forward and say, look, R20 is what people wanted, R20 fits in with that suburb, and we can do that, and we can ask the developer nicely to do it on the behalf of the people that live in College Grove. There are issues with traffic, there are issues with fire. However, I was here Saturday, as was Councillor Hayward and a number of other councillors, listening to the 100 people that came into council to express their concerns about the higher density. I've heard them and I'm listening to them. I believe that we have a case to be able to put forward to say yes, the lesser density fits in with that particular area in College Grove, and I urge councillors to support the alternative recommendation that is on the screen. Thank you.
Is there a speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the decision. For those of you who wish to depart, I'll pause while you leave the chamber. You're welcome to stay for the duration of the meeting. Okay, can I invite Karen Buswell? Is Karen here? Hello, welcome. So you can see the clock in front of me. Thanks. Over to you.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and general public. My name is Karen Buswell and I reside at 12 Bar Road, Bunbury. I am speaking on behalf of the residents who wish to preserve the stables precinct. We cannot support the council going to advertising of the local area plan due to the proposed R5, R30 zoning of the stables precinct and the roadway through lot 471 Bar Road. My husband purchased our block in 1975 when he was 16 years old from the Bunbury City Council because the former mayor, the late Dr Manier, and councillors had a vision for the long-term future of training and racing of horses from a designated area within the Bunbury City. Kevin, along with the other landowners within the stable precinct that I am representing, are concerned that our lifestyle and for some their livelihood are at risk of being taken away from them. The CEO of the Bunbury Turf Club stated at a recent Progress Reference Group meeting that the $17 million upgrade of the race club's track to all-year racing and training facility was a game changer. The upgrade has the potential to be very attractive to trainers from outside the Bunbury area and to relocate with the ability to race and train all year round, being very desirable to many within the racing fraternity. The Bunbury Turf Club's race meeting schedule will increase from 21 to 35 meetings per year and potentially will be the best training and racing facility in Western Australia. Racing and Wagering Western Australia are also looking at introducing greyhound racing at the Bunbury Trotting Club, another game changer. At last week's briefing meeting of council, it was stated that both clubs, the Turf Club and Trotting Club, support the local area plan. We believe that you, Mr Mayor, and councillors are now aware that the Bunbury Trotting Club has only ever supported rezoning to R10 and no road on lot 471 Bar Road. They fully acknowledge that any more than R10 and the training of horses, in particular harness horses, will be impossible and will have a detrimental effect on trainers' operating costs. Urbanisation in other areas has forced trainers to leave the industry or the area. From the onset of negotiations, we would like to stress we have supported as a compromise a rezoning of the precinct to R10, as per the City of Belmont's model for the Ascot Stable Precinct. We would like now to refer to an article in the South Western Times on Thursday, May the 23rd, 2019, which quoted our Mayor as follows: "What the research is showing, even in Belmont, is that you can actually achieve a workable outcome where you can have stables in a fairly high residential or urban area," unquote. We point out that in Belmont, the Ascot Stable Precinct blocks are zoned R10, and this is a low density zoning. There is only one unit of development, and this was done many years ago when this block had a different zoning to others. All the remaining blocks in the City of Belmont's Ascot Stables Precinct are R10 and allow for one dwelling, and provision must be left for stables on each block. The comparison to the Ascot model needs to stop there, as they only train thoroughbreds from this precinct and their requirements are vastly different from harness horses. During the week, there has been more than 80 horses in the Bunbury Stables Precinct. 60 of these are harness horses. It should be noted that trainers are starting to reduce numbers for 1 to 2 months during winter. They are worked most days of the week and traverse through the area known as Lot 471 Bar Road on their way to the jog track. Harness horses require a lot more gear, including a cart, and their impracticality of floating them to track work has to be acknowledged by all. The convenience of being able to go from your stables to the track is what has attracted residents to the Stables Precinct from all around Australia. Urbanisation and a road through Lot 471 would create a hazardous environment for trainers, horses and the general public, raising considerable health and safety issues. Urbanisation predominantly greater than R10 in a racing and training precinct is completely incompatible, and this is widely acknowledged. In closing, there are many great aspects of the local area plan, with the enhancement of the area through entrance statements depicting the horses. The ability for the clubs to increase their earnings potential through development should they wish to, the redevelopment of the Turf Club's racetrack and the introduction of greyhound racing are both great signs of a positive future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson. Welcome to you.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, councillors, council staff, thanks for the opportunity to talk tonight. My name is Mike Ferguson. I'm a landowner and ratepayer in the stable complex in Bunbury. My property is the largest single holding in the area, being over 3,000 square metres. Excuse me. I've been involved in the stable area from day one through my father, Len Ferguson, a long-time employee with the City of Bunbury and an original landowner in the stable area. He purchased the largest block, which was over 4,000 square metres on the day. My father's block and my block have already been either subdivided or part of a strata plan previously. I purchased my property in the 90s for the purpose of training horses and with a long-term plan of developing. I stopped training horses about 8 years ago, and since then I've tried to rent the house and stables out during that period. Over the last 5 years, the property has been vacant for about 2.5 years of that time due to little or no interest in tenants wanting stables to rent. I've also tried on several occasions to sell the property, but as zoned R5, it has little value compared to blocks around town of similar size. I'm still involved in the industry. My company is a sponsor and supplier to the Bunbury Turf Club, so I'm not out of the industry at all. The horse numbers in the stable complex have dramatically declined year by year over the last decade compared to the previous 10 to 20 years. Currently they are at an all-time low. The major players in either the trotting or racing industry, with the majority of these horses that are in the stable area, all for development, all for moving forward. There is a very small minority with very few horses that are objecting. In previous submissions over the last couple of years, it was brought up about the potential litigation probability because of horses getting away from handlers due to no security fencing from the stable area to the trotting track. This is now in the forefront due to the horse accident between a horse and a car yesterday in Perth. Currently there are horses that are crossing major roundabouts and intersections within 20 or 30 metres of these intersections. I hope the councillors can see that the City of Bunbury needs to move forward in this project and not be stagnated in the past with an idea that was formed in the 60s and 70s that doesn't work today. It's run its race. The city staff, with the help of Calibre Consulting, have done a great job to implement this wonderful plan, which works well at numerous clubs around Australia and the vast majority of clubs overseas. This is a win-win for all stakeholders. The ones that want to stay have that opportunity. The ones that want to move forward, move forward. The economic impact in developing this area in the future would be enormous, both for future employment and the beautifying of the very unsafe and very untidy area. We just want options. R5 is antiquated. We ask that the councillors to vote for the advising of the LAP Structure Plan Local Planning Strategy Amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sarah Wall. Welcome, Sarah. Away you go.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and general public. My name is Sarah Wall and I reside at 31 Bar Road, Bunbury. I am speaking on behalf of the residents who wish to preserve the stables precinct. We cannot support the council going to advertising of the local area plan due to the proposed R5 to R30 zoning through the stables precinct and the roadway through lot 471 Bar Road. The stables precinct is one of a kind in Western Australia. It is historic and unique. We are sure if you had a unique one-of-a-kind item, you'd be wanting to do everything you can to retain it. It has significant heritage value along with the Kerry Park Football Club to Kerry Park area and Bunbury overall. Yes, there are other racing and training facilities, but nowhere is there a combined thoroughbred and harness racing training facility such as ours. The Bunbury City Council, together with Racing and Wagering Western Australia, the Bunbury Turf Club and the Bunbury Trotting Club, should be doing everything in their power to retain and help it prosper into a state-of-the-art equine facility. It has huge potential and the timing has never been better with the $17 million upgrade of the Bunbury Turf Track to a year-round racing and training venue. The precinct's attractiveness to entice new trainers into the area can only be assessed in years after this development has been completed. If it is rezoned any higher than R10, this ability and attractiveness will be lost forever and horses will not be able to be accommodated. The racing industry is one of the largest industries in Australia and also one of the biggest employers. The economic value of the industry to the economy is substantial and this applies to the Greater Bunbury region as well. As of this week, with some 80 plus horses in the complex, an average feeding bill of $17 per day per horse, this equates to a total outlay of $1,360 per day or nearly $500,000 per year. Add to this the many other costs associated with racing and training horses, and it is easy to see how RAWA came up with a total of $58.3 million as racing's contribution to the southwest economy when previously asked for a figure. The stables precinct should not be facing an uncertain future due to rezoning. It is not fair and just to those property owners who have previously benefited from the great facilities offered by the precinct but no longer have a use for it. Should decide it is time to change the demographics of the whole area. Every endeavour should be given to building it into the most desired and envied racing and training facility in the state. In closing, there are many great aspects of the local area plan with the enhancement of the area through the entrance statement depicting the horses. It would be hoped that this would also depict the heritage background of the light horse brigades linked to the area and the role horses played in the wars. The redevelopment of the racetrack and the introduction of the greyhound racing, together with the ability for the clubs to be able to increase their earning potential through the development, should they wish to, are all signs of a positive future. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Larson. Welcome to you, Michelle.
The Mayor, the councillors, council staff, ladies and gentlemen behind me. My name is Michelle Larson. I married a horse trainer in 1994. I purchased a property in 1995. I represent the majority of stakeholders in the horse complex who request the council to vote for the advertising of the racecourse lap, structure plan and local planning strategy amendment. The 23rd of October 2016, the age of the residents at a presentation held on behalf of the council was 67 years of age. This isn't going down. It is true we do have a couple of young up-and-coming trainers, No one is asking them to stop training. We are asking for a choice. The proposed changes will bring a breath of fresh air to the area. The proposed parklands and facilities will enhance the area. The whole project is exactly what the City of Bunbury needs going forward. The proposed changes will give all owners options, the ones who want to continue training and those who wish to move. It is unfair that a small minority of people in the complex can hold to ransom over the majority of folk who wish to have options. R5 is not an option. We've sat at many council meetings, I've been to all of them in the past. R10 is not an option. It was stated at the one at the Trotting Club. The proposed changes will create jobs which so many need to inject the growth in the community. We need to be clear with regard to who wants change and who does not. It has been indicated to us that there is 49 blocks in the complex, of which 33 are clear on change. 67.3 of rate-paying residents want change. 8 are against, or 16.3%, and 8 are on the fence and don't want to upset their neighbours. My husband's mum is 84 years old. She built one of the first horse stables in this complex. My husband's been here all his life. We want an option. Our kids don't want to be a part of the racing industry. We used to employ 3 full-time staff. We don't employ any staff anymore. The feed bill will not go down whether they're stabled in here or out of town. We would like to relocate out of town. I don't know if any of you are aware of the racing industry. Damien Lane is a Bunbury-born child, aspired to Melbourne to a career in jockeying. He is now in Japan. He has won a Group 1 open races. He's won 17 in 2 weeks. He owns the property next door. It hasn't been rented in over 5 years. It has one of the best stable facilities in the complex. As for the racecourse redevelopment plan, which is an amazing thing for everyone involved in racing, the greyhounds would be great. It would be an added family event for years to come. There is a property on Bar Road. It's number 6 Bar Road. It's been on the market for at least 12 months. No one has come into town to buy that property to train their horses from the Bunbury Turf Club. Many trainers will travel from out of town to use the facilities, as they already do. We believe that it is important that whatever the resources that the Shire commits to needs to be the best intentions of its 17,000 ratepayers based on the proportionate considerations based on fact, not fiction. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone move the executive recommendation. Councillor McGuell, is there a seconder? Councillor Kelly. Councillor McGuell.
We were just talking earlier about going back in the archives, and this can be added to that because I believe it was probably about 4 years ago when I was asked to chair this committee. At that time, a relatively hostile time, I must admit. But looking back at that time, the first process was to run a couple of community groups, which we had one at the trotting track and one at the race club. There was about 90 to 100 people at those events, which had come up with a range of ideas, which basically got to the process where we are today, which come up with this local area plan. We've heard from 4 people tonight, both with obviously varying views, but I think what we need to do is obviously get this back out to those 90 or 100 people that were there initially. Obviously these people do represent those aspects, but there might be other people out there who have different comments on this. So very important with tonight, we're not committing to anything. We're not saying this is what's going to happen. We're putting this out for advertising. It will go out for advertising, which will give the opportunity for the people who have just spoken now, and obviously everyone else who hasn't spoken yet, that chance to come back in and say this is what we want or this is what we won't want. As Sarah mentioned, there is a number of aspects to this plan. Some of them are obviously a no-brainer, and some of them potentially have a little bit of conjecture there, which there may be some people in this room that are unsure about as well, including myself. But the beauty of this is that we are committing to it. We are going to advertising. That will give the opportunity for a number of residents to get their comments in, and then I'm sure our great planning team can then look at those, take them on board, potentially revoke this plan and bring it back to us or however we need to. Again, it might be minor aspects, it might be major aspects, but that'll determine on what comments come back from our community. I don't think we can cease this going out for advertising based on a few comments from this evening, although they all made some great points, don't get me wrong. But as I said, I think it's best that we get this back out to the whole community. Not only that, there might be people outside the racing industry who haven't had any say on this at the moment who may want to have some kind of say as well. So I'll be supporting it on the basis that it will go out for advertising, and we will get that response that we have, and hopefully then we can, our planners will take those on board, and we'll be back here in some time to go. But at this stage, I'm supporting it. I was looking at potentially increasing the time of public advertising, but after some commentary from some of the people in the area, they're quite happy to leave it at 28 days because obviously a lot of them already have the plans and have read through them. So I'm happy to leave it as is and move this recommendation as it stands right now.
Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Deputy Mayor stole my word on the archives because I recall being in on this 5 years ago, which is a little bit further again. But look, firstly, congratulations to people who have been involved in the 5 years. They've stuck with the consultation. It's been tough and times have changed over those 5 years as well, as and Mr Ferguson has pointed out how times have changed for him personally as he started off training and still involved in the industry, just at a different facet. It's been a challenge, and I think that the executive recommendation that's given to us tonight has met that challenge to make this work. The dual coding R5, R30 is, I suppose, what one might describe as an elegant solution. It enables people to continue working with their horses in the stables, and at the same time it gives people who are older and perhaps looking to capitalise on their investment in the years the ability to know that their property is underpinned by an R code that gives them some more value. It is a compromise. It's not. It may not suit everybody, but R5, R30, and then with pockets of R60 enables us to move forward with a modern and appropriate development into the future. I might well add that it's going to take a while because there's no sewage there at the moment. That's going to be a challenge, and not sure. I think the local MLA might be listening to that. We need some infill sewage at some point. But look, this is a long time coming. I think that the majority of people are in favour of a way forward. This executive recommendation offers the way forward. The people who wish to continue to use their property with stables can continue there, and I imagine that they'll be continuing there for some time to come. So I ask councillors, mayor and councillors to support the executive recommendation. Let's get it out to advertising and get through these stages as best we can, knowing that times do change and we do need to move forward. Thank you.
Is there a speaker against? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, let me start by saying that the majority of the plan I totally agree with, giving strength and certainty to two of our most long-lasting institutions, being the Bunbury Race Club and Bunbury Trotting Clubs. It will ensure the continuation of the racing and pacing industry in the southwest. Therefore, well done to those clubs, and long may they flourish. However, there seems, in my eyes, a glaring contradiction in the document of introducing R30 into an area which will ultimately see an end to horse racing in the precinct. When I was a kid in Bunbury, stables and training venues were spread throughout the city. Mills Racing Yard in Hayward Street near the beach, Jarvis's stables in King Road, Waldrot's stables in Queen Street opposite the South Bunbury Primary School. People used to hate living next door to stables. Flies, fleas, smell, and lots of movement and noise in the very early hours of the morning. It was recognised in the 1950s that modern residential development and horse training facilities did not mix. In the 1960s, the Bunbury Council came to the rescue and identified a unique parcel of land that existed between the Trotting Club and the Race Club that was developed to become our first equine hub, commonly known as the Bar Road Stable Precinct. I did some research, and the first sales of this precinct dated back to November 1969, 50 years old this year, a milestone year for the area. For half a century, the area has served the racing industry well, with a great deal of colourful history and memorable achievements associated with the residents and horses of the area. Earlier in this milestone year came an announcement of a $17 million investment into the race club, which includes rebuilding the main track and adding an engineered drainage system to provide year-round racing surface. This is a real game changer for the local racing industry and for Bunbury itself. This will expose Bunbury to Asia, and events will be broadcast into homes and venues in the most populated time zone on the planet throughout the whole year. A real game changer for the local economy, which will bring a spotlight on the uniqueness of the Bar Road subdivision. It also showed the great foresight and strengths of previous councils to resist the temptation of redevelopment of this unique equine hub. As it has been for the past 50 years, the council developed this site for the equine industry, and it is council's responsibility, I believe, to protect this zoning for future generations of the horse racing industry. As a council, we can do this by removing the split coding and maintaining the R5 zoning. This split code will destroy the utility of the area and create a dangerous mix of residential density and horses. While I believe the overall document does work well for the racing industry, I cannot vote for a split zoning which will change the face of the area for the future. Tonight, I am going to vote against the executive recommendation.
Speaker for, Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I also started 5 years ago on this. I remember the bus that we were on when it first came into discussion. And may I say first off that the community consultation that has happened in all that time has been very good, wonderful in fact. This is the first time that I feel we had another example of consultation tonight that went a bit astray, whereas tonight with this particular example that we have here of our racecourse local area plan, it has been all about listening to what the community has to say. And may I bring you back to that we are just putting it out again, once more, for public consultation. So we're not deciding the fate of this area tonight. It is just going out for more consultation. So it's going from step to step. It's going to be self-regulated as far as the horsing industry goes, that the way that I see it. For instance, the concern that Councillor Brown has, we're not going to say, and it's never going to be because it's coming from the public, that this going to be shut down over here and opened over there. This is going to be about the public. So if more horses come into the area, that will be able to happen, even though it is R30, because there's obviously the interest there. But for people who have now moved on, it gives them a future for their block of land. And this is what we're looking for. It's not going to be doing it tomorrow. It probably won't be available in another 5 years, unless, of course, we get sewerage, etc., happening there. And there will always be, because the state government and our local government, with the consultation that we've had, there will be guidelines there. So, for instance, if I come along and decide that I wish to purchase a block in there because I want to turn it all into a green forest, there will be something on my title telling me that I can't complain about the neighbour next door because they happen to have horses. This will be protected. The horse people will be protected. But our city is inclusive and we respect others' desires and we live together. So let's all live together with this plan and more public consultation so we get it right. So I will be voting for this. Thank you.
Further speaker against?
Sorry, sir. Can I just ask a question of clarification? Councillor McCleary just stated that there will be some kind of moratorium or covenant on the title. That's not correct, is it, sir?
I don't think there would be a covenant on the title. Councillor Smith, you wish to speak against?
Against. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I begin by thanking all those members of the community who've taken the time to let me know their views on what should happen, for their passion and their commitment to their views is to be commended, and as such it is a difficult decision to make for me because it will disappoint some people. You probably all know that I'm really interested in Bunbury's history, and this is a unique part of Bunbury's history. Dr Manee has been mentioned several times tonight, but he did have the foresight of establishing this subdivision between the Turf Club and the Trotting Club. This has meant that the race club has gone from strength to strength, and the trotting track itself has also done very well. In effect, the council is being asked to ignore the fact that the Stables subdivision have been a great success, and the race club is likely, with the injection of funds, to have year-round racing. This means more people will come to Bunbury, and because there are increased events, there would be a need for stables close to the track. These two clubs do not appear to be clubs in decline, and seem to be on the verge of becoming busier. I understand the reasoning of Dr. Munir all those years ago that horses in close proximity to urban areas don't mix at all very well. The reasons that Councillor Brown has mentioned, noise, dust, flies, safety, and other issues of large animals living in an urban setting. The main reason I'm also voting against this is that once this goes out for public consultation, that's really it. We don't have a chance to come back. And also I'm concerned for the people that bought into this subdivision in good faith all those years ago, hoping that it will remain the same. I want to again assure those good people in the subdivision I've given much thought to this issue and have been trying to reconcile in my own conscience what the best thing to do. I understand that owners who no longer have horses, or those who have never had horses, want to maximise their investment, but this has to be balanced against what has been achieved in this subdivision, and as I said, once it's rezoned, it's going to be really difficult to go back. I think that perhaps we can leave this a little longer. People have mentioned sewerage and other things. As people decide, there's a better way of stabling horses and training horses. Or when horses leave the subdivision, the horses left in the subdivision are so low that we can, in all conscience, rezone this. So I would like to leave it as it is at the moment. Thank you.
Speaker 4, I think Councillor Hayward might have beat you by half a head, if I can use that
That's it.
terminology.
In many ways, this is, I guess, the thin end of the wedge, and there is some concern around R30. I have to say, I'm going to take a heap of convincing to be convinced that R30 is a good way forward in this precinct. But we still need to put it out for public expression. This is the process. This is how it works. When no one's making a decision or adopting this, and you can see already with the different views around the council chamber that this will be hotly debated when it comes back. But we run a process where we talk to the community, we ask them what they want, we've come up with a plan, it's got a couple of contentious points in it, there's probably a lot of points that most people will agree to, but we've got to put it out. That's how it works. We put it out and then it will come back to us and we will have an opportunity. We're not adopting this. This is not our last opportunity to revisit it. As I said, I'm going to take some convincing to believe that R30 is a good way forward there, but that's an argument for another night, not for tonight. Tonight it's all about whether we put this out to allow the general public to have their comment on it, and I'll be supporting us doing that. Thank you.
Further speaker against, Councillor Steck.
Thank you, sir. For me personally, I've probably stated inside the chamber many times, once a document is going out for public comment, that is an indication that I endorse that document, and I don't endorse the document entirely at all. I do understand the need for some change, but having said that, I don't believe that anybody in this room as a leader thinks that you buy a property for the purpose of saving it for 50 years for a retirement package. That's not how it works. It's not planning at all. So the reality for me is the zoning for this was set aside for the horse racing industry. If we carve it up, if we take it away, you lose it. So the question has to remain, do you want a horse industry in this community or don't you?
Speaker 4, Councillor Morris.
Question before I speak, sir. The briefing before we came in here, there was a comment made by the CEO about placing restrictions on new development of people who moved in. Could the CEO please explain again just exactly what restrictions could be made?
CEO.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. There's a notification that can be made onto a title. I think it's referred to as Section 70A notification, quite often used where properties are perhaps being subdivided or being developed adjacent to a port, as an example, or perhaps a highway where it's quite clear that the purchasers are aware at that stage that there may be some impact on their lifestyle or their amenity due to the proximity to whatever that nature of transport or industry that's located adjacent to the property.
Did you speak for the
Yes, sir.
executive recommendation?
This is a damned if we do and damned if we don't situation. We're trying to protect two different groups. One that actually has a foot in the door in relation to the racing industry. They bought the property with the intention of training horses. So be it. That's what it was there for. We also have people who have bought into the area that were training horses and no longer wish to train. Now, what do they do with the property? That's what you have to ask. What can they do with the property if no one's willing to rent it, no one's willing to buy it, and it remains vacant? Do we sit and allow that to take place, in which their assets could be their life savings assets placed within a property which is useless to them? By allowing the development of R30 and still allowing R5, R10 for the racing industry, and we have placed upon restrictions for the title that these folks that move in have no right to interfere or complain about the racing industry. That's the key, where we can actually continue having the racing industry and the training of horses in the area, and at the same time allowing people to develop their land and move on. It's a compromise. It may not suit everyone down to the T, but at least it's a compromise where everyone can feel that their interests are protected. Thank you.
Further speaker against? Councillor McGraw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, councillors. A lot of good words said. I think I just want to reiterate at the end here, a lot of this discussion and debate has been about whether you're endorsing this plan or supporting this plan or not. As I said at the start, and as Councillor Hayward said, this is going out for advertising. Whether or not you do or don't endorse this plan, Councillor Smith, you mentioned it won't be coming back to us. It will be coming back to us. As point 2 says, at the end of the public advertising period, we can reconsider the plan with any amendments made from the advertising period. So we'll have that option. So whether or not you like the plan at the moment, as a number of people have said, even those who are against it, there are a number of great aspects of this plan. So I'd hate to see the whole plan just put aside and not go out for comment when there's particularly maybe a few little bits and pieces that can be tweaked. And if there has been a number of people speaking to you, Councillor Smith, as has been me, I'd suggest them that you ask them to get their comments in. That'll give our staff a bit of direction when they come back in, and that plan will come back to us. At that stage, it's probably worth a bit of a workshop to go through with this, and then obviously it will be a very interesting debate when it does come back, but we can deal with that when it comes back. For now, let's get out the advertising and let's hear the comments of the community.
Thank you. I'll put it all in favour. Please indicate. Those against? That's carried. So Councillors Brown, Steck, Steele and Smith were against. Thank you. So we're going to advertising, ladies and gentlemen. 10.5.1, before I ask for a mover, CEO just wants to clarify where we're at with the lease negotiations.
Look, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had, when we prepared the agenda, we had intended that the documentation for the contract of sale for lot 1881 specifically would have been executed prior to on the 24th of May. We've actually, because the contracts for sale are linked to also the long-term lease of the caravan park and the lease of the Sykes Foreshore site, there's been one clause which we are still negotiating. So I have to inform Council at this stage those contracts have not been signed. Our intention would be to see those contracts signed, I'll say, imminently, and that the funds that we are asking for will be ensuring that we are not starting to expend those funds until such time as the contracts are signed.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just need to declare, given that the change of information, I need to declare a financial interest. My business has some dealings with the Discovery Caravan Park.
Okay.
So I may step out given that
Councillor
that's
Hayward.
changed.
Yeah. Just wait, please. So are there any questions following the CEO's comments? Yep.
Thank you. Only, would it be appropriate then just to add a noted thing that this will go ahead as long as, and I don't know the words, just number 3, as long as the contract's signed, and then we could get on with it now, otherwise we might need to defer it.
Yeah, the CEO, you can move that, Councillor McCleary. The CEO has just stated he won't be signing anything until the lease is in place. Can I have someone move the executive recommendation? A question, Councillor Kelly.
The CEO alluded to one sticking point, which we don't know what that sticking point is. Is it intended to give us a bit of a heads up in due course as to what's happening there? That may well be a significant sticking point in some minds. I don't know
Just
what
ask
it
if
is.
it's commercial in confidence.
I think I can explain the
Go ahead.
details, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen.
The point in question at the moment is the connection of the lease and the operational plan of the splash park to the lease of the caravan park. And any default provisions on the lease of the splash park actually have an impact on the lease. So the penalty, if you like, if we use that term, is a breach of lease on the caravan park site. So commercially, there's some concern by Discovery Parks about how we manage that process. So we're very, very close to finalising those arrangements to a satisfactory, to the satisfaction of both parties.
Councillor Kelly, follow up.
Just to follow up, in the negotiations about the splash park, I recall quite clearly that there was discussion as to whether or not council would end up with I suppose, a legacy that could be negative if this group, for some reason, moved or did something else. There's no chance of that in here. We're obviously linking the splash park with the lease of the actual caravan park. There's no chance that the breaking of that nexus leaves us with something that we don't necessarily want, and I don't think we wanted it by word before. Is there, or am I on the wrong track? I'd like to get a bit more brief on it, but if you can answer that, fine.
CEO.
The short answer is no. There is no break. We're not intending to break the separate. We're intending to keep the two joined. So you can't have one without the other.
Okay, can I have someone move the recommendation?
I have a question also, sir.
Councillor.
Given the CEO's information, if the contract then is on the proviso that it's not signed at the moment because of the splash park, and for the want of a better word, that a penalty would occur, then it seems to me, in my mind, that there's already a discrepancy between council and the intended leaseholder of days of operations. So if the break lease condition is that, say for example, a simple repair to the park might take 3 weeks, but they override that 3 weeks to some 3 months, is that kind of management order or that management structure the reason for the upholding of the contract signatures?
The CEO can just, if you can explain that in non-technical terms. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I am sort of conscious that we are now getting into quite a bit of contractual matters, and the documents haven't been signed at this stage. So the intention is that the city staff have continued to work towards protecting the city's interests, at the same time making sure that there is a facility that is provided for the community free of charge. So there are a number of elements you almost need to have a separate conversation about the details of the contract, which is probably now's not the time for that. My assurance to councillors is that this recommendation we put forward is required to enable the initial research and planning for the electrical and water extensions, which we have an obligation to do to the boundary of the water splash park. Without being able to start those works without starting the planning for those works within the next 4 weeks, the water splash park will not be delivered in the 2019-20 summer. And that's been a key element of our desire from both the Discovery Parks and the City of Bunbury at all times, was to have this facility delivered for summer 1920.
I'll arrange for the CEO to detail all of his said tonight in an email to everybody tomorrow. Councillor Warnock, are you ready to move this?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Miguel seconds. Councillor Warnock?
Look, just to say, I think this is a really exciting time for Bunbury. This is going to kick-start one of our major projects, Splash Park, that's going to be free for everyone in Bunbury to enjoy. And I really congratulate the staff and Discovery on all the work they've done with this, and I really look forward to seeing it starting and getting up and running, ready for next year. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Miguel? Is there a speaker against? Councillor Stick.
Thank you, sir. I'm not against the entirety of the expenditure of the item, but I am against signing off on something that we don't even know if we're going down the path of having all of our contracts signed. It seems to me putting the horse before the cart, and I can't do that with ratepayers' money.
Speaker 4, Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've been running over this number 2 a lot in my head, and I'm feeling okay with it because we are saying with the reserve account to be replenished once the settlement lot of Kambana Drive has been finalised. What this indicates is that the money is going to be used, but with the city. We're not giving the money to anyone that hasn't signed a contract. The money's staying with us, and it will be used appropriately. So I'm good with it. Thank you.
Speaker against? Councillor Warnock to close.
Thanks.
I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. Those against? 2 against, that's carried. Councillor Stick and Smith voted against. 10.5.2, can I have somebody move? Beg your pardon? Oh, sorry, yeah. Good. I'm glad the CEO's on the ball. Welcome back. Can I have someone move 10.5.2 executive recommendation, please? Councillor Hayward.
Happy to move.
Seconder, Councillor McCleary. Councillor Hayward.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. We had a briefing on this, and I think it's quite an exciting proposal. When you first look at it, you're a bit maybe some concern that there might be some parks being closed down, but the idea that we'll be renewing parks and lifting the quality of them, really good parks make a park in a suburb a bit of a destination. People will travel from all over to go and try out a new park. We've still got some really cool and groovy equipment, and we've just got too many parks to be able to maintain, as the report says, and this will allow us in a fairly strategic way upgrade to get really good quality parks and be on a rolling schedule of new parks being rolled out in Bunbury, which means we'll always have a state-of-the-art park being unveiled. So I think it's a pretty exciting prospect for our community, and I'd urge you to support it. Thank you.
Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm also excited, mainly because at long last I think that our city is focusing on our parks, which is really important. What generally happens is they just mow it and go away, but we're actually going to take a handle on this and upgrade it, look after it, and nourish it and nurture it for our community, and I think it's wonderful.
Is there a speaker against? Councillor Steele.
Thank you. I'm only voting against number 6, and I really hope that you actually all look at number 6, please. Playgrounds that are surplus to needs and that can be removed without a reduction in current percentage of coverage will be retired at the end of the useful life. What I don't like about number 6 is that it doesn't actually have a say of how those are earmarked. And what I am concerned about is the parks that we have been given a list of that are going to be surplus to requirements. I actually went onto Google Maps and had a look at those in the pictures, and a percentage of those actually have half basketball courts. There's 2 or 3 within Withers that are going to be closed, which I don't think is actually great for that area. It also has one that's going to be kept, which is actually going to be on the major highway. So I understand that using computers is actually not the right way to work out which parks we are going to keep and close. I also don't like that that the working group that we have has had no input from a councillor. There is nowhere in this document that says that we are going to look at, because at the moment we have an online survey going on. There's no where in this document that says we're actually going to look at those that information as to earmark what parks will be closed. So I would prefer that number 6 is actually withdrawn. And once we do have the parks and the list that is actually going to be made out to the general public, then we go back to for community feedback, so they actually know what parks we do have earmarked to be closed. People have an affinity of their parks in their areas, so I do think that this is actually going to be a backlash on us if we do pick the wrong parks to close without coming back. Whereas number 6 does not give us any opportunity to come back to council or out to the community.
Question, please.
Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The terminology that Councillor Steele said is close would give one the impression that we were going to close it and perhaps sell it off for residential. But it's removal of the old equipment only. We will still be, and that is a question. We still will be, as the public, go be able to play in that park. Does the park remain, or are we planning to sell it off? Because the word terminology here, close, I can't find it, so could I have a clarification on that, please?
The park area will remain. The equipment may go. And I also recall, and I'll ask the CEO if he can answer this, or Mr. Harris. My understanding is that any proposal to remove playground equipment from a particular park, rendering that park without playground equipment, will be brought back here for approval. Question.
So initially, Mr. Mayor, the 8 guiding principles were to allow the staff to finalise the draft strategy. That strategy will then come in its entirety back to council for endorsement for advertising. So this is really the first step in this process. This is not locking anything into concrete.
Okay.
The strategy would then go out for public comment. Within that strategy, we'd be quite clear about if playground equipment is to be removed. I think we'll have more detail about the life of that playground equipment that still remains and when that would likely to be removed. And we expect that there'll be significant community engagement in the process, not only of upgrading playgrounds, but also how those parks that may not have playground equipment into the future will be managed and dealt with.
Thank you. Further speaker 4.
No, I actually have some questions now. Then I would prefer why is there not a .9 that says that information, what you've just said? If we had...
Thanks for your question, Councillor Steele.
Thank you.
CEO, the question from Councillor Steele is, there seems to be a little bit of doubt that would be the actual case, but can you just elaborate?
Well, through Mr. Mayor, just to reiterate, what we decided was to bring the guiding principles for endorsement by council so that staff could then shape the strategy in accordance with the guiding principles. We didn't want to provide a document that hadn't had some consideration by council of those significant objectives or guiding principles. All I can reassure council is that document will come back to council for endorsement or not. So council will have an opportunity then, and the strategy would contain much more detail than what's presented tonight for the guiding principles.
Thank you. Speaker 4.
I've got more questions because nowhere in this what we've said today is that saying that. So that's why I'm having doubts. So I would feel more comfortable if that was a number 9, that it does say that it is going out for public consultation and will come back to council. And I'd like that number 9 amendment if we could, please. I don't think it doesn't go against what we're trying to do, but if we state that it will be going out to community consultation, then I feel so much more comfortable supporting this.
Just knock up.
Sorry, sir, I also have a question.
Yeah, it's okay. Wait, we'll just pause, Councillor Stick. The CEO will work up a draft number 9.
is that covering what you were looking at?
So that'll be number 9.
So we'll renumber that, Mr Mayor, so we'll have number 1, that will be a number 2 recommendation.
Okay.
1A to...
Can I ask Councillor Hayward and McCleary if you're happy to incorporate that in your, you are, Councillor McCleary?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So that's incorporated now. So is there another speaker for? Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and I thank Councillor Steele for putting that in there. And I was going to say prior, when we were taking them separately, I'm assuming that's not required now, but I always get very worried when I see a percentage stuck on a page, because percentage are like statistics. They can be very easy to manipulate to get an outcome, not to say that we would be deliberately taking away a playground from the kiddies, because we all like playgrounds and we all like public open space and we like parks in Bunbury to ensure that we keep a healthy community. So that additional clause that Councillor Steele suggested and the CEO so elegantly plonked in there, I think has given us a safeguard to make sure that we just don't deal in percentages, but we deal in reality on the ground, which is playgrounds, blades of grass, trees, and all of the good things in public open space that makes Bunbury the place it is. So I'll be supporting 10.52 wholly, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Speaker against?
Sorry, sir, I just have a question.
Go ahead.
It also relates to percentages and figures, and I've raised the issue previously at the briefing of the Parks and Recreational Strategies. The breakup in the hierarchies of parks, my question goes to the hierarchies of parks and the numbers and the age groups of the children visiting those parks. I've raised it before and I'll raise it again. Is there an assurance in this council that we're not going to just take away the capacity for teenagers, like i.e. from 10 to 14, to use parks? Because most of the infrastructure we're putting in is for little kids. So can I have an assurance that the parks are going to be balanced for all ages concerned?
I think that's already the case, but I'll ask the CEO to comment, or if he wants to give Mr Harris the opportunity of speaking tonight.
I'd love to give Mr Harris the opportunity. He may refer to the community consultation component.
Thank you, Mr Harris.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Look, the intent is that playgrounds are put in for a range of age groups. I suppose one of the things we've looked at is to be able to do that, there's actually an increase in costs to do that. But this will actually allow us, for the money that Council currently allocates in its long-term financial plan, it actually allows us to provide a lot wider range of equipment. So when we start looking at parks and we do our public consultation, we go out to the general public and ask people within the vicinity of each playground that we're replacing, what do they want to see in that playground? And that's from mothers to dads to grandparents to the kids themselves in regards to what do they want to see in their park. So that's a process we've used for the last 3 years, and that's a process that will continue to be used into the future.
I think we also invited the Kerry Park Primary School to make comment on that park at Kelly Park. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Hayward, do you wish to close? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, can I have someone move we take item 10.26 behind closed doors? Councillor Steele's leaving the meeting. Councillor Hayward moves that way. Is there a seconder?